We'll start with Tuchel on this point. Potsy, would you take Tuchel as the England manager?
Yeah, 100% I would. I think he actually has a balance between defensive play and attacking play. I think he proved that at Chelsea. He's got a CV that says that he's successful. I think he's done good things wherever he's gone. I know people laughed at Bayern Munich and PSG, but maybe, yeah, it got a little bit too heated for him towards the end. But I still think that he did some good things there. I think at Borussia Dortmund, he was where he was first kind of recognised as being a good coach. And then obviously won the Champions League with Chelsea. So he's a CV that I look at and go, yeah, you know what it's like to get yourself through a tournament, mate. You know how to win a tournament. And I think when you look at what he would bring to England, it is a style of play and someone that can get us across the line and someone that I think would know where to put these players into positions, because Lee Carsley has clearly made it very, very clear that he doesn't want the job. And at the moment, we've had very underwhelming names that have been linked with England or that have got the job. Because when people are begging for people like Graham Potter or Eddie Howe, it doesn't fill me with a massive amount of excitement, if I'm honest with you. Not that I think they're bad coaches, and they would probably do a lot better than what some of the previous managers have done. I do think Tuchel has got that kind of winning mentality and that CV that says that I can get you across the line. And at the moment, I just want a manager that, one, I recognise, two, I could actually say has got something about them that I think in terms of upstairs knows what they're doing, but also has got a mouth and that can actually talk and have a voice. I also think that the CV speaks for itself. I just want someone to come in and actually play these players in the right positions, because without turning this into an England podcast, it has been quite painful to see over the last few games being forced into positions where we've kind of rolled back the years, really, 10, 15 years, where Lampard, Gerrard, Scholes, they're all trying to play in position, put one on the left and put one in the 9 and one in the 10, all this rubbish. We started to see that, and I don't want to see that again. I feel like we're going backwards if we did that. So for me, I think Thomas Tuchel is clearly interested in the job. The other thing he's got is he's got an advantage that he's got experience of managing in England, so he knows the players well, and he has at least seen them play and where they're best suited. So I think we could do a lot worse than Thomas Tuchel. I really do. Look, I'd love Pep. I'd love Klopp. Of course, I'd love those two ahead of anybody. But for who's available right now, I think Thomas Tuchel would be a great shout as the England boss. I really do.
Yeah. I'm not too against it. Listen, I know a lot of people think that the England manager should be English. And you know what? Listen, I ain't going to disagree with them too much, because I used to think the same. I used to believe the same. I used to be very much of the opinion that the England manager should be English, the Spanish manager should be Spanish, blah, 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 right? But then I've got to a point now where I'm like, I just want to see us win a fucking trophy, man. Yeah, I can't, surely, bro, I can't leave this earth without seeing England just lift anything. I'd take a bloody Nations League at this point, you know. But no, listen, Tuchel is a decent manager. I think Tuchel would. I don't think he's too different in his approach to Southgate. He's more on the reserved side, and he's not like a Pep or a Klopp who's more expressive with it. He's more on the reserved side. So I think that transition from Southgate football to Tuchel football should be quite smooth. And he's also won stuff. Now, he's not at the caliber of a Jose. Yeah, I'd love a Jose. I think that'd be amazing. Pep, Klopp. He's not at the caliber. Yeah, he's not an elite level manager, but he's a good manager. He's a very good manager. You don't win the Champions League if you're not a very good manager. So, listen, I think it's better than we had, and I think that's progress. And I think when you get rid of a manager and you get a better manager, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and slag it off, because ultimately Tuchel is a better manager than Southgate. Is he an elite level manager? No. Well, let's see what happens. It's a tough job because we've got a lot of players that need to fit into a team, and you're probably not going to be able to fit them all in. So someone's going to be getting dropped, and that's going to rile up the media. It's going to rile up the fans, and he's going to have a lot of shit to deal with. So let's see how he gets on, man. But I'm not against it. I'm not against it. And listen, like I say, if you think the England manager should be English, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you, because I used to think that as well. I've just changed my opinion, but a lot of people do think that.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I prefer the idea of Pep. I prefer the idea of Pep when we saw those links, and obviously then the reports came out about him maybe signing a new 1-year extension at City. I prefer Pep to take over. I don't care whether the manager's English or not, and I've never really cared about that. You see, the England women's manager is Dutch, and she's done a great job. You know, I grew up part of Team GB. We had coaches that were from the States and from Canada, because Team GB were willing to pay them more money, and they made us better at what we did. So for me, it's about the nation winning. I don't necessarily think we need the team to be full of players that were born in England or have an English heritage. In other sport, you know, you've got people like Mo Farah, weren't born in England, but they represented us very, very well. I don't consider him any less British, me personally. So yeah, I couldn't give a damn. And you know, someone like Tom, I mean, imagine a German taking over and winning us the World Cup. There's something beautiful and poetic about that. I love it. It's you're almost sticking it to the Germans a little bit in that as well, of course. So yeah, I'm not against it whatsoever. The element that I'm worried about is he's also linked to Man United, and I think he's a decent manager, especially for where we are right now. And it would just be crazy if England end up with Tuchel and we stick with this guy. Like I'm being very selfish here because I care more about Man United than I do England. And I do sit there and think to myself, imagine England end up with a better manager than Man United. That pains me. That really, really pains me.
Yeah, but again, you know what happens is fans, and I'm not just calling out United fans there, yeah, because we all do it. But obviously, you're talking about United. But you know what we do as fans? We don't accept. We don't want to get a better manager. Fans. You know what we don't do? Yeah, we don't just accept better managers. So then in the summer, United fans were telling me Hansi Flick washed, dead manager. He did it at Bayern. He's never done it anywhere else. Don't want him. He's gone to Barcelona. He's doing quite well. The fact is, yeah, he's a better manager than what you have right now, which is why I'm accepting of Tuchel. If you get a better manager, you're going to improve. Keep him for a year or two, sack him, get a better manager. Like, why, as fans, yeah, what we want as fans, we want the greatest, which should be the aim. But unless we can get the greatest, we ain't sacking our manager. We ain't changing. It's like, bro, if there's a manager out there that's better than your manager, get him. What's the problem? Everyone wants this 5-year, 10-year thing, bro. Like that is rare, man. That is so rare.
Yeah, you get a lot of this
win now, man.
Well, you get a lot of this win now manager versus a project manager, and again, in the early conversations surrounding that, it made sort of sense depending on where your club is and what they're doing. But it's getting to a point now where it's almost becoming a bit of I want a manager who's here. I want a manager who's here for the long term. I want a manager who's here for the sorry, I pulled out the charger. That'd be the last thing I need is the laptop now running out of battery. Sort of, I need a manager that's here for the long term, not just who's win now. I'm sure there's managers. I mean, Pep Guardiola was never considered a long-term manager. He was considered a win now manager. He's about to complete a decade at one club if he signed just 1 year extension. You know, I do get people say I want a project manager, and some say I want a manager that's going to win now.
Well, typical example, Terry, right?
But they've got to be better than what you've currently got. Like they've got to be an improvement, surely.
But a typical example, right? Liverpool and Chelsea and Manchester United in the summer were all looking for a manager. I know Ten Hag was safe, but really the fans wanted a new manager. And when we were on this show, people said, "Oh, Dan Potts just wants a win now manager. He doesn't get it's a project. It takes time. Look at what Arteta's doing at Arsenal." My argument was, well, we still haven't won anything yet. So we actually do need to get across the line. Although I do think he's done phenomenal to get us challenging, we do actually need to start winning something. And then they said, well, who do you want then to just win now? And I suggested Hansi Flick, right? And everybody laughed and said, you're joking. Oh, God, he's washed, absolute washed manager. Why don't we want him? We want Xabi Alonso ahead of him. Hansi Flick's going to go and do bits at Barcelona. Hansi Flick would have been a very, very good appointment for Manchester United, Liverpool, or Chelsea. And he's proven as to why. That's the sort of manager that you should have gone for, in my opinion, with the structure that you've got now. Hansi Flick would have been a fantastic appointment for Man United, Chelsea, or Liverpool. Not that Slot and Maresca won't be good. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying at the time, why was that so laughed at? I could not believe it. It was the amount of abuse you were getting. And I was like, it wasn't just on this show. There's other shows I was going, Hansi Flick's available. They're going, oh, washed, absolutely washed.
Well, that's because football fans do this thing, and we're all guilty of it at times, where it's all about what's flavour of the month, what's in vogue. There is a good chance this year that Bayer Leverkusen are nowhere near the last season standards, and they finish fourth. They don't win a trophy. Does that suddenly mean that Alonso isn't as good? No, not necessarily. As an example, you know, there are people out there now that don't. There are certain people that don't think Arteta's a very good manager. He ain't won nothing. So let's say this season he misses out winning the league by a point versus he wins the league by a point. So there's a 2-point swing. Is that 2-point swing the difference between being a very good manager and being a dross manager? No, it can't be. The margins can't be that fine between you're elite, you're brilliant, and you're no good. And that's the problem with a lot of fans is everything is polarized, everything is over the top. But as soon as the buzz runs out surrounding a player, there are certain players, like 2 years ago, if you'd have said, "Oh, you're up for signing Tchouaméni," yeah. I've heard people on streams and in spaces in the last few months go, "I don't know, really. He's a bit washed, isn't he?" Well, you mean the hype's gone away? That's all it is. The hype's gone away. They're still the same player they were. It's just nobody is buzzing about them. And Hansi Flick, I think he's looking excellent at the moment. And there's a lot of good managers out there. It's just about being at the right club and being in the right environment. And it doesn't always, things don't always work out for you. Not every, like the Pep Guardiolas of this world are almost, Sir Alexes of this world are almost anomalies where everywhere they went, it just worked out. Most managers, even the guys that you see on the GOAT lists, they've had appointments or they've gone places where it didn't quite work and they've left and they're doing brilliant elsewhere. 5, 6, 7 years ago, people thought Ancelotti was over the hill.
Yeah,
it's all of, as football fans, we're like moths. We're attracted to the bright lights. Who's the flavor? A year ago, Bellingham was walking on water. Now there are people saying, actually, it's Cole Palmer. By the way, in 2 years' time, people are going to say the same thing about him. Flavor of the months, man. And I'm not saying any of these guys are bad. But fans are just fickle as hell, man.
Yeah. No, you're spot on, mate. You're absolutely spot on. Let's see what happens, mate. But spot on there, pal.